Okay, so now that shot 1 is finalized, let's carry on compositing shot 3. So I'm going to jump up and then jump down inside our shot 3 image network. And you'll see that we've already got our audience comp and stadium comp in place from when we were creating these assets. I do need to go ahead and set our frame range back for dealing with shot 3. So I'm going to set the top frame, the end frame to 650 and our start frame to 265. So we've got our audience and our stadium. We do need to also bring in our floor, we need to bring in our set, and we need to bring in our character. Now the floor and the set share the exact same lights, so we can reuse our set asset for bringing in the floor. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to push tab, come up to digital assets, create our set comp. And I'm going to rename this to floor. And let's bring our visibility down onto this asset. And let's browse to grab our diffuse and specular sequences for the main spotlights for the floor. So I'm going to jump up again, jump into shot 3. We're going to jump into the floor folder. And we're going to grab the main spots diffuse. I'm going to double click Control C on that, double click Control V into the specular sequence, grab the main spot specular. For the shadow sequence, I'm going to jump up, jump into shot 3, jump into floor, jump into shadow, and grab the shadow for the main spots. I'm going to switch over to the secondary spotlights tab. I'm going to Control V to paste the diffuse sequence from our main spotlight so I can browse directly to our shot 3 floor folder, and I'm going to grab the secondary spots diffuse sequence. I'm going to repeat that for the specular, so grab the secondary spots specular for shot 3 floor. And then finally, grab our shadows on shot 3 for the secondary spotlights. And that's going to get all of the passes for our floor in place. I'm going to push tab and bring in another instance of our set comp, this time for our set. So let's bring that in, bring our visibility down to that node. And I'm going to grab our diffuse for shot 3 for the set for the main spotlight, so set main spots diffuse. I'm going to double click Control C on that, Control V that into our specular sequence so we browse directly to that folder and grab the main spots specular for our set. I'm going to browse and grab the shadows for shot 3 for the main spotlights, and then switch over to our secondary spotlights tab. I'm going to paste my clipboard again into diffuse sequence so we can browse directly to the shot 3 set folder and grab these secondary spots diffuse. I'm going to paste into the specular sequence, jump up and grab the secondary spots specular. And finally I'm going to jump and grab our shot 3 secondary spots shadow pass for the set. So we've got our floor, we've got our set, we've got our audience and stadium. All that's left to bring in is our character. So I'm going to push tab, come up to digital assets and create an instance of our character comp asset. Bring our visibility down to the character. And we need to grab our diffuse sequence, so I'm going to jump into shot 3, into the character folder. It's going to take a while, there's a lot of files for our character. And I'm going to grab the main spots diffuse. I'm going to double click Control C that, Control V that into our specular sequence, and grab the main spot specular for shot 3 character. And I'm going to grab the shadow sequence for shot 3 for our main spots. I'm going to flick over to the secondary spots tab, paste my clipboard into the diffuse sequence again, so that we jump straight to the shot 3 character folder, and I'm going to grab the secondary spots diffuse, paste into the specular sequence so we jump straight to the shot 3 character folder and grab the secondary spots specular. I'm then going to browse for the secondary spots shadow, so I'm going to jump into shot 3 into the shadow folder and grab the shadow for the secondary spotlights. I'm then going to flick over to our rim lights tab, paste into the diffuse sequence so we jump straight to the shot 3 character folder, and I'm going to grab the rim lights diffuse pass for our character, paste into the specular sequence and grab the rim lights specular for our character. I'm going to switch over to the fill light tab, paste into the diffuse sequence and grab the character fill diffuse pass for our character, and finally paste into the bounce light tab and grab the character bounce pass for shot 3 for our character. So with that, we've brought in all of our passes for all of shot 3, so we can go ahead and get these layered in the correct order. So working from background to foreground, we can think of the floor being the furthest in the background. We're then going to bring the stadium in on top of that. We'll then bring the audience in on top of the stadium. The set needs to be on top of both the audience and the stadium. And finally, our character needs to be on top of everything. So I'm going to create a layer cop. And I'm going to wire these in order. So our floor first, then our stadium, then our audience, then our set, and finally our character. So if we bring our visibility down to the layer, we should see all of our passes brought in. So we've got our set, and we've got our audience with our character. I'm going to flick through a few frames. I'm going to continually press Alt-Shift-R because we've got a lot of passes here, so a lot of memory is going to get eaten up very quickly. So let's skip forward a small amount, and we can see all of our passes working. We can skip forward further and see our passes working. Further still, we can see the shadows being cast down onto our audience. And again, the shadows being cast onto our audience, this main spotlight illuminating our character and the bleachers. There we have our character. We've got the secondary spotlights with their specular. And finally, our character has dived into the pool, so we've got the main spotlights casting shadows onto the floor, and we've got our secondary spotlights illuminating everything. So it looks like all our passes are working, but we've got a little bit of work to do in terms of the levels. So I'm going to jump right back to the start of the shot and start working with some of the levels, especially with our audience. Now, I'm not going to spend too long getting all of these perfect. Again, we're not looking for artistic perfection here, but you guys can spend as long as you feel necessary tweaking all your values and also going in and using color correct comps wherever you feel is necessary. So I'm going to jump to our audience comp, and the first thing I'm going to do is bring down the bounce light on our audience quite significantly. I'm going to do the same on our stadium because this is really a bright red and is far too intense for what I was looking for. I'm going to jump back to the audience, and I definitely want to bring out more of the rim light on the audience, so I'm going to jump over and boost the overall intensity probably to 1.5 just to bring out the rim light on the audience a little more, and I'll probably bring out the top light on the audience by bringing the top light for the audience to 1.5.
Maybe 1.2.
Okay. Yeah, that's a little bit better. So that I'm fairly happy with the audience. I'm going to shift forward a few frames just to see the character when it's in full illumination. I'm thinking possibly a little too bright. Obviously he's going to be illuminated by a lot of lights here, so we want the feeling of an intense amount of light, but I'm feeling that's just a little too bright. So let's jump to our character, and I'll probably drop down the diffuse on our main spots very slightly. And I'm happy with the secondary spotlights, happy with the rim light. Feel like it's not going to do much here because the fill is going to be hitting mostly black surface, so let's jump forwards further. I'm fairly happy with how that's working. Have you got any suggestions you'd like to make?
No, that's working pretty good there.
Cool. I would like to jump ahead to where we're doing that crane shot because I want to work with... Well, here we can already see maybe the top light on our stadium's a little too intense. So I'm going to jump to our stadium. Let's grab the bleachers top and bring down the intensity just a small amount, something...
Maybe even just a little more.
Something like that?
Yeah.
That's cool. And that way we're going to get more of a focus when the main spotlights illuminate, which looks kind of nice. I'm after killing out these crazy specular highlights we're getting on the secondary spots on our set. So let's jump over to our set. And the secondary spotlights, I'm happy with the diffuse amount of lighting, but I'm really going to drop the specular lighting down considerably. I'm also thinking of decreasing the amount of lighting our floor is receiving, just to draw attention away from the floor. So I'm going to grab our floor, and with these secondary spotlights I'm going to decrease the overall intensity just to draw attention away from the floor and back towards the set, since that's where the character is going to be diving into. So I mean, we could spend a long time tweaking all these values, but I mean, for a start, I'm fairly happy with these, unless there's anything you'd like us to change.
No, it's looking pretty good.
Cool, so in that case, that's going to wrap up this video where we've got the basic settings put in place. In the next video, we'll turn around and bring in our depth paths and work with some depth of field. So thanks a lot, everyone.